Tonight you're going to meet a lawyer named Rob Bilott, who took on a giant corporation whose chemicals are now in the blood of virtually every American. It's a fight that is the subject of a new book that he has written and is portrayed by Hollywood in a new movie.
My name's Mark Ruffalo, and I'm honored to play the role of Rob Bilott in the upcoming film Dark Waters.
The film is the account of how a small-town lawyer, Rob Bilott, took on the huge DuPont chemical company.
DuPont is knowingly poisoning 70,000 local residents for the last 40 years.
Helping to expose how potentially dangerous chemicals used to make Teflon had made their way into the blood of almost every American.
What if whatever's killing those cows is in the drinking water?
Rob not only discovered that these toxic chemicals were building up in our blood, he also sounded the alarm, sharing what he found with the EPA. And also, Rob secured the funding through a legal settlement with DuPont to undertake the biggest human health study of toxic chemicals ever.
Bilott's crusade against DuPont got its first national attention in a report that Rhonda Schwartz and I filed for the ABC News program 2020. According to the federal government, some of the highest blood levels were found in a nationwide sample of children. And even DuPont says it cannot rule out that Teflon-connected products, such as its Stainmaster carpet treatment, give off the chemical, although at blood levels DuPont says are far too small to be a problem.
We are confident when we say that the facts, the scientific facts, demonstrate that the material is perfectly safe to use.
Uma Chowdhury, a vice president of research, is the DuPont executive chosen to publicly defend Teflon, the company's most valuable brand name. She says Teflon is completely safe, even if the key chemical is in everyone's blood. Everyone has it.
Everyone has it.
It's in my blood? Your blood?
Possibly. We do not believe there are any adverse health effects.
Is it a good thing to have it in your blood?
There are lots of chemicals that are present in our blood.
In America, it falls to us, the ordinary people, to prove that these chemicals are toxic before the chemical is regulated by our government. That is simply backwards. It's the companies that make billions of dollars producing these companies, not us.
The public may only now be realizing the scope of this problem, but the companies that manufactured these chemicals have been aware of the risks for decades, but failed to alert the rest of us. I know because I spent the last 20 years of my career in litigation with these companies, pulling out of their own internal files what was already there and was already known about the risks of these chemicals.
And we're now joined by Rob Bilott, the lawyer who Mark Ruffalo calls a hero, and the author of a new book chronicling his efforts, Exposure. Mr. Bilott, thank you so much for doing here. DuPont says of the new movie that features your efforts that it misrepresents and mischaracterizes executives and employees and actions associated with historic DuPont in decades past, saying it's entirely in the realm of make-believe. What do you say?
Well, I think that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to make sure that this book was available to the public and for the movie Dark Waters, for people to see the actual events here of what really transpired, that this really happened. You know, this happened in our country, in the United States, during modern times, during our lifetimes, where you've got contamination on a global scale, unprecedented, contamination of drinking water, soil, all over the country, all over the planet, and in virtually every living creature's blood, humans, polar bears, you name it. And so I wanted to make sure all of the history of what actually has happened, what we do actually know, what the facts actually are in the book, in Exposure. Everybody can go look and see for themselves where the truth actually lies here.
And Rob, we're also joined tonight by Bucky Bailey, whose mother worked at that DuPont plant in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and was born with severe birth defects. Bucky was also portrayed in the movie Dark Waters. So Bucky, thank you for being here. When we first met you for our report on 2020 years ago, you were just getting married and concerned that given the high levels of the chemical in your blood, any children you might have had would have suffered the same plight. So Bucky, bring us up to date.
Well, it took us several years to get to a point where we wanted to have children just due to the struggles that I faced in my life. Genetics told us that my children would have 50% chance of contracting the same birth deformities. So it took us quite a few years to get to a point where we did. Finally, through prayer and faith, we made the choice, and I now have two beautiful children, a 3-year-old son and a 10-month-old daughter, and they are the love of my life, and I'm supremely blessed.
That's great news. A question now from our control room and executive producer Rhonda Schwartz. Rhonda?
So, Rob, you were able to get an astonishing DuPont settled with you for $650 million. You had 3,500 clients. But what about Bucky Bailey's birth defects? Were you able to get any compensation or connection, any satisfaction there?
You know, unfortunately, the scope of the study that was done, we set up this massive human health study to try to have independent scientists look at all of the data, including what was in DuPont's internal files, including their own study, which showed that 2 out of the 7 women at the DuPont plant had children with these defects, including, unfortunately, Bucky, as we all know. And the panel, we put together an independent panel to look at all that data, try to do a bigger study so that they could get enough cases and enough instances to be able to confirm which diseases were linked. They were able to link 6 different diseases, including 2 types of cancer. But unfortunately, there just weren't enough cases with the birth defects to confirm that link. And I think we're all hoping that with additional studies and hopefully with even bigger studies, possibly national studies, that will eventually be confirmed. And we'll know one way or the other, finally.
So, Rob Bilott, you're still fighting with DuPont.
Yes, we actually still have cases that are pending. As you heard, we had a settlement in 2017 for about 3,500 people who had one of the 6 diseases linked to drinking this chemical in their water. That was a settlement for about $671 million in 2017. Unfortunately, because of how many people have been exposed, we've got people who are being diagnosed with these diseases almost every day. So additional cases have been filed. Those cases are now pending, and DuPont is choosing to fight every one of those cases in court. We've also filed a new case where we are seeking to try to get independent scientists to look not just at PFOA, but at this wider group of PFAS chemicals that we now know are out there in our water, in our blood, and to independently confirm what this larger group of chemicals will do on a national scale. That's pending right now in federal court in Ohio.
And Bucky Bailey, let me ask you, you're still in the fight yourself. You're eager to make sure nobody suffers what you went through.
Absolutely. I'm honored to play my part in it and stand with Rob, stand with Mr. Ruffalo and others who are fighting. I've met numerous people who have been impacted by this and still continue to be impacted by this. And I will do my very best to shout it from the rooftops that we cannot move forward like this. We need change.
And that change is what, do you think?
Regulation. We need to have this chemical stop. We need to understand exactly the impact that it has, which we have that in our hands now. And now we are waiting for Congress, we're waiting for our government to enforce it. We know what the studies have shown. We know the harmful effects that it has on us. We can't continue to go about thinking that there's no effect.
And Rob Bilott, let me ask you, in Washington, you're not getting that great of a reception, are you, from this current administration?
Well, this has been a process now that's been going on for almost 20 years through multiple administrations. And, we're really hoping that people realize this is not a political issue. I mean, it shouldn't be a partisan issue. I mean, it shouldn't be red or blue, Democrat or Republican. We're talking about clean water, clean blood, and a clean environment, something I would hope all of us support. But moving this through the regulatory system, it's one of the things I try to explore in more detail in the book, Exposure. And you see that played out in painstaking, the long process in the movie Dark Waters as well. This takes a long time to move through this regulatory system in the United States. And in the meantime, at least, we've got states that are trying to move forward and fill that gap and protect people in the meantime. I'm really hoping that people see what people like Bucky Bailey and Mr. Tennant did, standing up, one person, can make a huge change by just standing up and saying we're not going to put up with this, and things need to be different.
Well, you both have made a huge change. Congratulations to you, Rob Bilott and Bucky Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And congratulations on the movie and your new book, Exposure.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.